Should I raise this? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My brothers and sisters, thank you for listening on Al Mubarak Radio. Tonight's topic is going to be about how best to achieve a successful marriage. It's an important topic. So, inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me the tawfiq to listen and learn and conceptualize, and may give the people who are listening as well, give the tawfiq to put into practice what we learn, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. So Jazakallah khair for listening once again on Al Mubarak Radio. Marriage is a very important topic. Subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created love and mercy with each other when they get married. Subhanallah, just imagine two strangers coming together, strangers whom they didn't even know each other at all, and then coming after marriage, after niqah, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates love and affection to each other. So I'm just going to give you some tips and some sort of ideas and strategies as to how best we can be as a spouse to our loved one, and how best to resolve matters and resolve problems, and how to be understanding with each other. Because the first thing is love, respect, and courtesy are the basic ingredients of a happy married life. And in effect, your true character of who you are is what's required, basically. Honesty, integrity, conscientious, concerning, compassionate, considerate, all these traits that we know that makes a good person is what we need. But with a spouse, we need to be extra careful, and we need to be they're your life partner. And if you have a good life with your partner, you'll have a positive life. And if you do not, and you have a miserable life, then that's really to be having a sad state of affairs. Now, there is this added problem that married couple have, because the shaitan is always there to deceive you, to the waswasas that are there that want to break up the marriage. And when Iblis is in his throne, when the shaitan comes to Iblis and says, I have done this and I have done this to this particular person, or not made this person go to the masjid, or did this particular sin. But when the shaitan comes and says to Iblis, I have broken up the marriage between those two people, he hugs him and says, you're the best, you've done the best. So we've got this added problem, and this the shaitan that's always there, that inspires for us to do things that take us away from a happy married relationship. So some of the tips I'd like to sort of go through first of all, and then inshallah we'll talk about other aspects around what the Quran and Hadith says about this. Being honest and showing appreciation of one another is also very, very important. Understanding each other at good times and bad times is another sort of tip that I normally talk about. And many people actually look at other people's marriages and don't look at that. Remember that the grass is not green on the other side of the hill. Be polite and courteous, saying thank you and please to each other, and saying sorry when you need to say sorry. Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness. Remember, it is your marriage and you have come this far, particularly if you've been married for a long time. Make the best of it. Pledge to yourself that you will do your part and try your best. And always be thankful to your partner. Find something that you appreciate and say about your spouse. You need to do something at least once per week together. It does not matter what it might be. It could be something very little, going out to eat together, for example, having a shared light conversation. Every day you should have certain time in your sort of routine to spend some quality time with your wife, to discuss, to have a cup of tea together. Always listen carefully Some fights ruin the life, even both sides do not know the cause of the fight. And this is sometimes you just on little matters you make it into a very big affair, and because of that little bickering, you don't get around each other. And if you think that your sort of marriage feels that it's lost its flame, just try to imagine yourself without your spouse. The time that you have your wife in your presence, or your husband, and just imagine that for a short while your spouse is not there. Look how you feel, and that will give you some food for thought. And communication is the key in any relationship. One should feel free to discuss all things without fear and repercussions at any time. Learn about each other as best as you can. What are their traits? What are their interests? What are their hobbies? What are your hobbies? Share that. And sometimes it's good to have some time for yourselves as well, individually with your own colleagues and friends. And sometimes giving positive words, positive vibes is always very, very important. Always looking at aspects that are making you positive. And if there are any problems you have, there are always solutions. So try to look for solutions together, positive conversation. Okay, inshallah. So here talk to you about certain aspects that are quite crucial. The first one is respect your spouse. If you want to have a healthy marriage, then you have to make your spouse feel like you are equal and take his feelings for granted. You don't take feelings for granted into account. You take their feelings into account whenever you're making a decision or just about going to, say, for example, having a discussion. You need to ensure that your feelings are heard and your feelings are said to each other. If you treat your spouse as if their opinion do not really matter, then this is when the problem starts. Make sure that you give your spouse views the same seriousness that you give to your own, and that you take the time to listen to your spouse and make them feel that you care for them. And being considerate. Work to be kind, loving, and understanding to your spouse. If you're having a bad day and you snap at him or her, make sure you apologize. Give them the basic respect that they deserve, instead of thinking that you cannot do whatever you want because you're married. So that's quite important. You should also respect your spouse's privacy. Don't go snooping around on the phone as to who they're contacting. Trust and respect is there. That needs to be there. If you care about your spouse and you want to have a healthy and productive relationship, then you should avoid getting hung up on past mistakes as well. Don't dwell on the past mistakes. Look at the present state. Instead, work on reinforcing positive behavior, enjoying your present time together, and thinking of all that you're looking forward to. If you really care about your spouse, then you'll be considerate of his feelings or her feelings, and won't bring up the past just to get a reaction on them. That's really important. Sometimes it's easy to let go of the past. You shouldn't bring it up just in spite. Remember that your spouse is a living, breathing person, and that you shouldn't bring up the past just to hurt them. Take time to listen. Listening is one of the best ways to be considerate towards your spouse. Don't just zone out, and when your spouse is talking, you're just thinking about and conceptualizing what you're going to be saying. Take seriousness in what your spouse is talking about, and listen to them attentively. Make an effort, really, what they're talking about. And when you're having a real conversation, put away your phone, making eye contact, not watching the TV, but really giving that quality time with your person. Giving priority to your spouse. Though you don't need to make your life revolve completely around your spouse, you have to remember that when you and your spouse decide to get married, you want it to be a priority to each other. So give priority to each other all the time. Make sure you honor your decisions and make all of your big decisions with your spouse in mind, making sure that you try to do what's best for you as well as for that person that you're married to. If your family and friends aren't getting along with your spouse, then you shouldn't try to jump to their defense unless your spouse is being unreasonable. And that's quite important. Just because they're your friends and they're your family members, whatever they say is correct. It's about giving. It's about not being defensive and being ensuring that you also listen to your spouse as to what the true matter is, unless your spouse is being unreasonable. Make sure you're considerate of your spouse's feelings and that you give him or her the love and support that they deserve. The next one is communication. Communication is key. If you want your marriage to be successful, you must communicate with each other all the time. You and your partner should be able to talk graciously to each other about your thoughts, especially about things for the two of you that you agree upon together. Doing this daily helps foster communication between partners and to keep your marriage healthy and strong. Don't break marital confidences. Don't break confidences for you or use them as a weapon during an argument. If your partner trusted you with something very private and important, then keep that trust. Do not betray your partner. If it was something painful and personal, then don't use it as an ammunition during an argument, or your partner will be betrayed. Be considerate of the fact that your partner trusted you with the important information, the private information that she or he shared with you. You should be the person your spouse trusts more than anyone else in the world. Don't do anything to jeopardize that trust. If you do make a mistake, make sure to apologize for it. Also, be familiar with your partner's moods. If you sense that something is wrong with your partner, take time to embrace him or her and ask what's the matter. Maybe that's the time he or she needs you most and that you need their attention most. Don't ignore that opportunity. If your partner isn't ready to talk, then you don't have to push it and make things worse, but you should show that you'll be there for them and willing to open up. And also, don't forget to say "I love you." These are just 3 words, but they're very, very important words. Don't ever think that because you don't have to say "I love you" because you love her or him anyway. Um, Make an effort to tell your partner how much you love him or her at least once or twice a day, and make sure you slow down, look at your partner, look at them in the eyes, and say that you really mean it. Don't say just for the sake of it, "I love you" on your way out to work or whatever. It's about where you really mean it. Making this small effort to say these words make a big difference in your relationship. So regularly say that, but you really mean it from the heart as well. Don't just say these words because you want to say something or because you're making up after them or after a fight, for example. Say them just because you truly love them and that you mean it. Sometimes it's good to hug. Physical contact is quite important. Make this effort an affectionate effort to touch them, to hug them, to kiss them. This can help you to start the day off on the right foot, particularly if you do it in the morning. But even when you come back from work, if you don't see each other all day, then this affectionate gesture can make a lasting impression until you come and meet with each other again. Make time for each other. As your relationship progresses, you'll find that there will be more and more obligations that will keep you from having time alone. However, you should make sure to get that time alone every week, even if you have to sacrifice some time with your friends or family to make it happen. Remember that hanging out with your friends at a barbecue or a friend's party or at your pet's house isn't the same as just spending time alone with your spouse. And when I said to you about hugging and kissing, don't underestimate the power of touch. Make sure to hug, touch, reassure, kiss, hold, or just be there with your partner as much as you can. That physical connection can help you keep your relationship strong and can help you feel close to each other, even if you're not always on the same page. If you grow distant or cold and don't even sit near your partner, then when you're on the couch together, your relationship will grow distant as well. Do the little things that make each other feel loved, whether it's giving your partner a kiss on the hand, doing chores for him or her, when he's having a busy week or she's having a busy week, or leaving a note on the by the mirror or on the desk. You should never stop doing these little things, no matter how tired you are or how comfortable you feel in the relationships. Even if it's me that's you're getting on with each other so much, these little things do matter. You should never get lazy when it comes to your marriage, and make sure to always make your partner feel special and loved. Make your partner appreciate how much they love them, how much you love them. Make sure your partner knows how much you appreciate the little everyday things he does or she does, like even the washing up or making the bed. If you're not well, for example, and you're doing these things, make sure that you appreciate that. Don't take it for granted. And of course, you can always respond by doing things that make your partner feel appreciated as well in return. Surprise each other with little gifts, not during the time of birthdays or special occasions, on Eid days, for example, but make it an effort, just because of the fact that you want to, because you love them. This will make the moment even more special. Gifts they don't need to be extravagant or expensive, but just little things. Even if it's a sort of a gesture of giving something small, that really does count. And little something can create warmth and sweet memories that can last a long time. Pay attention to your partner to hear what he or she is wanting, and get that unexpected gift for them at the right time, and surprise them with the gift. Sometimes the most thoughtful gifts of all are being just because of you being you, and you want to make sure that you show them and appreciate the love that you give them. Help your spouse out when they need help. If your husband or wife has had a very busy week, then you should be understanding and spend more time helping them with the cooking, or you doing the cooking yourself, doing the household chores, etc. And if you're a man, our beloved Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam expected us to do that. He did Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did all the household chores as well, and so therefore it's a sunnah to do that. So don't think that it's your wife's responsibility to do the household chores. Sometimes your spouse may even deny that he or she needs extra help, but if you can see that he is stressed out or she's stressed out and overwhelmed, make the effort to help them and assist them in the household. So inshallah, she'll be back shortly again, after this short break, and we'll come back inshallah and talk about the Islamic perspective on how to achieve a successful marriage. Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My brothers and sisters, thank you for listening. I want to continue with about talking about how to achieve a successful marriage. One of the things that our Prophet ﷺ recommended is that whenever you enter your house, say Assalamu alaikum. Say Assalamu alaikum. And also in the Quran, chapter 24, verse 61, which is said, but if you enter your houses, salute each other a greeting or a blessing and purity as from Allah. Subhanallah. So when you come and enter, even if there's nobody in the house, say Assalamu alaikum. And when you actually enter and your spouse is there, your husband, your wife is there, say Assalamu alaikum. When you enter the home, say loudly Assalamu alaikum to your wife. This is a recommendation. The Prophet ﷺ said, when you go home, greet your family with salam. It will be a blessing for you and your family. Subhanallah. It's a blessing for you and your family. And this is according to Al-Tirmidhi. And the other things I have heard also is to recite Surah Ikhlas when you enter your house and Durud Sharif, because the shaitan is kept outside the door. When you say salam and you recite Surah Ikhlas and Durud Sharif when you enter the house, and when you're eating your food and you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, so these two things keeps the shaitan away from your house and away from when you're eating. The shaitan will say, there's no place here for us to stay, and there's no place here for us to eat. Just imagine. Little things, but such an important aspect for us. Little for us to just about remembering these things and to do it consistently. And also, when you actually, in respect of your time and quality time with your wife or your husband, it's important that you give them disproportionate. Do not give disproportionate time in worship. There is a saying when Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As who says that when the Prophet ﷺ learned of his overzealousness in worship, i.e. reciting the Quran or praying all night, he said to him, have I not heard you that you fast all day and stay up all night for prayer? Abdullah said, that is true, O Messenger of Allah. The Prophet ﷺ told him, do not do that. Fast and break your fast. Sleep and get up. For your body has a right over you, your eyes have a right over you, your wife has a right over you, and your visitors have a right over you. So those people who think that, the only way to go to Jannah is that you pray consistently, you fast consistently, and you're just always in worship, So here the Prophet said, your body has a right over you, your eyes have a right over you, your friends and family has a right over you, and more importantly, your wife has a right over you. So bear that in mind. So don't give disproportionate time in worship. And yet the actual worship is a good thing. But despite this fact, you need to be proportionate to how much time you give, particularly to your spouse. And in terms of the showing the love and affection our beloved Prophet ﷺ gave to his wife Aisha, there is a saying reported by Al-Nisai. The Prophet ﷺ was sitting and he heard some noise from people and children outside. There was a group of people gathered around some Abyssinians who were playing with the spears. He ﷺ said to Aisha, "Oh Aisha, come and see." I put my cheek on his shoulder, Hazrat Aisha was saying, and looked through the gap. Then he said, "Oh Aisha, have you not enough? Have you not had enough? Have you had enough?" I said, "No," just to see how much I meant to him, and I saw him shifting his weight from one foot to the other foot. I.e., he was tired, but he was still willing to stay as long as she wanted to watch the spectacle. Just imagine. So, giving time and affection, even at the time when our beloved Prophet was inconvenienced, he just wanted to make sure that she had enough time to watch the spectacle of the Abyssinians who were playing during that time. Subhanallah. So there's a lesson for us to learn from here. Aisha radiallahu anha also reported once when she went out on a journey with the Prophet, she challenged him to a race. So they wanted to have a race. So she challenged him, and she won, and she won. So basically, playing and running even out of good with a goodwill gesture with your spouse is a very good thing, a very, very positive thing. Later on, when she had gained weight, she raced him again, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But this time he won, and he told her just these words: "This is for that. This is for what happened then." So trying to get his own back, as it were. Our beloved Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never criticized food, and this is something that we need to be mindful of. So if your wife is making food, and you don't like it, or it's not to the taste that you want it, then don't complain about it. The Prophet ﷺ said he never criticized food. If he liked it, he ate it. If he didn't like it, he simply left it. This is according to Bukhari and Muslim. SubhanAllah. Some lessons for us to learn from here. Showing kindness to friends and relatives. So if your spouse had friends and relatives, showing kindness to them. So Aisha narrated, an old woman came to the Prophet and smiled at her, showed her respect, and asked her, "How are you? How have you been doing?" She answered, "I am fine. May my father and mother be sacrificed for you, O Messenger of Allah." When she had left, Aisha said, "Why did you welcome this old woman so warmly in a way that you do not welcome anyone else?" SubhanAllah. The Prophet ﷺ simply replied, "She used to come and visit us when Khadija was alive. Do you know? Do you not know that honoring the ties of friendship is part of faith?" So honoring the part of friendship of your spouse is part of faith. So, your spouse's friends and your spouse's relatives, be kind and generous to them as well. Fear of retribution from Allah. Salma, the Prophet's wife, recounts an incident which took place when the Prophet was at home with her. He called out to a maid servant, and when she failed to appear, he showed signs of displeasure. The Prophet showed sign of displeasure. Then Salma peeped out through the curtain and saw the maid playing. So Salma recounts an incident when one of the maids was asked to do an errand by our beloved Prophet ﷺ, and she didn't attend to him ﷺ. And when Salma peeped through the curtain, she saw this spectacle, and she saw that the Prophet ﷺ had a miswak on his hand, and he said to this maidservant, "If I had not fear of retribution on the day of judgment, I would have tapped you with this twig." And this is according to Bukhari. So when this maid did not attend to the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't become angry, he didn't get upset, he didn't even say any bad words. He just said simply, "If I would not have retribution from Allah, I would have tapped you with this miswak." So this is to imply that he never hurt anybody, he never hit anybody, his spouses, his friends, his colleagues, the Sahabas, or even the maid. Just imagine. What are the strategies to please your husband? So, strategies for the wife to please the husband. Be obedient to your husband, provided that no sin is involved. So, this is according to the hadith. If a woman prays her 5 daily prayers, fasts her month of Ramadan, guards her chastity, and obeys her husband, it will be said to her, "Enter paradise from whichever of the gates that you wish." SubhanAllah. This is class as Sahih by Albani, also in Sahih al-Jamai. So being obedient to your husband is considered to be a very virtuous act, will allow you to enter paradise. Caring. Aisha radiallahu anha caring for our beloved Prophet. Aisha radiallahu said, "I applied perfume to Allah's Messenger peace be upon him, with my own hands before he entered the state of ihram, and when he concluded it before circumambulating the house. And this is according to Bukhari and Muslim. So just imagine, applying a perfume to your husband, just like Aisha radiallahu anha did to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The status of the mother. Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha asked Allah's Messenger, who has the greatest rights over a woman? Our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, her husband. She asked, and who has the greatest right over a man? Then our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, his mother. And this is reported according to Al-Bazzar with Hassan Isnad. The Prophet said also, a woman should not fast if her husband is present, except with his permission. She should not allow anyone to enter his house when he is present without his permission. Whatever she spends on his wealth without him having told her to do so, half of the reward for it will be given to him. And this is according to Muslim. And also, one of the sayings of the Prophet from Sahih Muslim, among the worst type of people in the sight of Allah on the Day of Judgment is the man who enjoys his wife's intimate company and she enjoys his intimate company, then one of them goes and discloses the other. So do not share your secrets in your private household, in your private bedroom, with your intimate relationship. Do not share that with others. This is according to Muslim. And we see this a lot in the general people when they do this. There are many programs about this, and this is really sad. And in Islam, this is not allowed for Muslims to do. Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha reported, just as Islam expects a man to help his wife with his housework and running household affairs, so the woman is also expected to help him in dealing with the outside world and to play her role in life by offering her opinions and advice and supporting him in practical terms. So this is what Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha said. So just as Islam expects a man to do the household chores, the wife can also assist in giving her advice to her husband in respect of the outside world, the life that they play in aspects around whatever it might be, politics or whatever, community affairs, but giving her opinion and advice, supporting him in practical terms. Also, our beloved Prophet said, may Allah have mercy on the man who gets up at night to pray and wakes up his wife to pray. And if she refuses, he sprinkles water in her face. And may Allah have mercy on the woman who gets up at night to pray and wakes her husband up to pray. And if he refuses, she sprinkles water in his face. SubhanAllah. So at Fajr time particularly, your husband is sleeping. I don't mean that you take a bucket of water and spill that over on your husband. Just sprinkling a bit of water, and vice versa. If your wife is sleeping and she doesn't wake up, a bit of water on the face to wake her up to pray Fajr is a very good thing. The Prophet also said, 3 things make the son of Adam happy, and 3 makes him miserable. Among the things that make the son of Adam happy are a good wife, a good home, a good means of transport, and the things that make him miserable are a bad wife, a bad home, and a bad means of transport. SubhanAllah. Wife, home, and transport. So, a good wife, a good home, and a good transport is good for that person and makes him happy. A bad wife, a bad company, a bad home, and bad transport makes an unhappy life. And yet, in terms of calamities that befall everyone, one needs to bear in mind this important hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, according to Muslim. How wonderful is the affair of the believer, for his affairs are all good. And this applies to no one but the believer. If something good happens to him, he is thankful for it, and that is good for him. If something bad happens to him, he bears it with patience, and that is good for him also. Subhanallah. So whatever, no matter what happens to this person, you know, if it looks bad, there might be some good in this. There's usually good in this, Allah, with Allah's blessing, by the grace of Allah. And something bad happens, that is there's something good in it. Something good happens, that's also from Allah, and you just accept it. So when something bad happens, you just be patient and we persevere. And as we know from the Quran, the Hadith, the Quranic scriptures, this is a surah from Al-Nashra, around, with every difficulty there is ease. With every difficulty there is ease. So we are required to be patient and persevere and expect Allah's mercy and blessings that comes through Him. In respect of the ideal husband, if I could just mention this, among the signs, among his signs is the fact that he has created spouses from among yourselves so that you may find tranquility with them, and he has put love and mercy between you. In that are signs for people who reflect. SubhanAllah. Chapter 30, verse 21, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, and among the signs is that He has created mercy and affection and love among the spouse, so that so that people can reflect. So among his signs is the fact that he has created spouses from among yourselves, so that you may find tranquility with them, and he has put love and mercy between you. In that are signs for people who reflect. Subhanallah. Just imagine such an important verse that two strangers come after they do nikah, they get married. Love and tranquility and mercy has put between them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yet another powerful verse of the Quran from Surah Baqarah, verse 2, chapter 187. The wives are garments for you, while you are the garments for them. So the husband is the garment for the wife, and the wife is a garment for the husband. A garment is something that is beyond what we can comprehend. Garment is the nearest meaning in Allah's wisdom, something that is close to you, something that protects you, something that gives you warmth, that hugs you, that clings to you. All these terms are garments, implying that this is how you are with your spouse, and this is how your spouse is to you, something that is so close. So husband is expected to give his wife company and marital relations, and to avoid doing anything that would harm her. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Surah Nisa, live with them on a footing of kindness and equity. If you take a dislike to them, it may be that this dislike a thing that you have, while Allah brings about through it a good deal. Subhanallah. So this is chapter 4, verse 19. So if there is something that is short, that is short in your wife, for example, then look at the good things that she has. Look at the 90% of the good that she has in her. Don't look at the 10%. This verse urges the man to avoid divorce and try to preserve the marriage, even if it's not ideal. This is to be done in the first instance by exercising patience with his wife and with his wife's faults. Concerning maintenance, men shall take full care of women with the bounties which Allah has bestowed more abundantly on the former than on the latter, and with that what they may spend out of their possessions. A man is responsible to earn a living. He doesn't require a wife to go and earn a living. Obviously, different circumstances do apply. If your wife is a gynecologist or a teacher or a nurse or somebody who can help in the community, all well and good. But whatever she earns is for her to keep. That is not it's not her responsibility to maintain the family kitty, as it were. It's the husband's responsibility to go out and earn a living. So this includes basically feeding, clothing, and shelter for the wife and children. This is the ultimate responsibility of the husband, of the father and the husband. This is a legal enforceable duty which remains even after divorce until the expiry of iddah. So even if a divorce occurs up to the iddah finishes, you're still responsible financially for your wife i.e., your former wife in this particular instance. Financially responsible for the family therefore rests squarely on the husband. And the wife is no duty to contribute to family expenses unless she has a means and wish to do so. If she wishes to do so out of mercy and compassion, to pay for the bills, for example, then that's her choice. But if you're wealthy and you've got money and you are earning a living, and she's also wealthy, she's got inheritance from her father, for example, then you cannot touch your spouse's money unless uh, she wishes it she wishes it herself to do that voluntarily. The Prophet ﷺ also said the most hateful of all lawful things in the sight of Allah is divorce. So the divorce is the least liked thing by Allah, the least liked thing by Allah. So something that is halal, permissible, nobody expects for any of the spouse to live in a miserable life. This is the reason why there is divorce, but it's the least liked thing by Allah. So therefore, it's one of the lawful things, but in the sight of Allah, it's the most hateful thing, as it's mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ, according to Abu Dawud. So be careful with that. Try your best, your utmost to compromise, to help, to be willing to listen, and solve things out, resolve problems amongst yourselves. And if that doesn't happen, get your extended family together. And this is the reason why we've got 3 stages of divorce. You say talaq, and then there's this one period cycle of your wife, and then you try to reconcile amongst yourself. And if that doesn't work again, the second talaq is said, another period of monthly cycle, and then after that, if it is still not working out, that's the time. But within that period, there's huge things that can go on, not sleeping together, for example. And who knows, in Allah's mercy, during that period of time, there's a time for reflection and pondering where your extended family can help out and assist. And many of the cases I know people have come together as a consequence. And it's important that we abide by that as best as we can. The husband is always required to be faithful in marriage and follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandment. One of the aspects around this is Surah An-Nur, where it's mentioned, chapter 24, verse 30, tell the believing men to lower their gaze and be mindful of their chastity. Verily, this will be most conducive to their purity. And verily, Allah is aware of all that they do. So, before it mentions talking about lowering your gaze to the woman, it asks the believing men to lower your gaze. So you cannot, when you actually look at the shaitan, is always whispering in your ear about when you see a beautiful woman, and you might think that and you are married, and you might think, had I married this person, the grass is not green on the other side of the hill. It's important that you understand that you lower your gaze. This is the reason why you're basically preventing anything happen untoward. And this is a commandment by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, chapter 24, verse 30. Tell the believing men to lower their gaze and be mindful of their chastity. Verily, this will be most conducive to their purity. And verily, Allah is aware of all that they do. SubhanAllah. Marrying more than one wife is conditional. So if you fear Allah, you could not do justice between them, then marry only one. When there is aspect about the fact that polygamy is allowed in Islam, you can marry up to 4 wives. But if you're living in the UK, that's not, it's contradictory to the law. Yet you can do a nikah and marry the first wife. But yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is recommending you and urging you to marry only one. And only the Quran, compared to other scriptures, is the one that really emphasizes on just marrying one, because you cannot do justice to marry 2. You cannot spread the mercy and love and affection to, say, for example, 2 wives or 3 wives or 4 wives. If you feel Allah that you cannot do justice between them, then marry only one. And yet you are allowed to. I mean, during a time of war, when there was so many widows within the institution of marriage, people used to marry more than one wife so that they could be protected as well within that institution of marriage. But otherwise, if you're not able to do justice to them, then be warned by Allah. Do not marry one at the expense of the other, and you will not be able to treat your wives with equal justice. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to us in the Quran, chapter 4, verse 3, Surah Nisa, and you will not be able to treat your wives with equal justice. Just imagine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to us, and you will not be able to treat your wives with equal justice, however much you desire it, but do not incline towards one to the exclusion of the other, leaving her, as it were, in suspense. Many people think that because it's allowed to marry more than one wife, if it's at the expense of your first wife, then this is not allowed in Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making it clear here. So the Prophet also warned whoever has two wives. There's a big warning from our beloved Prophet. Whoever has two wives and does not treat them equally shall come on the day of resurrection with half his body hanging down. Subhanallah. What a state of affairs. Whoever has two wives and does not treat them equally shall come on the day of resurrection with half his body hanging down, i.e., half paralyzed on the day of judgment. This is according to Abu Dawud, Nasai, and Ibn Majah. Following the Prophet's example is the best way. You have, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, chapter 33, verse 21, following the example of our beloved Prophet. In the Quran it is said, you have in the Apostle of Allah a beautiful pattern of conduct for anyone whose hope is in Allah on the last day. Remember, we know the story from the seed of the Prophet that the Prophet himself used to, according to Hazrat Aisha, that he used to sew his own clothes, sew his own shoes, do the household chores, do the cleaning. So, this means that husbands are also required to do the same at home as well, changing the baby's nappies, hoovering in the house, helping to cook, ironing. So these are virtuous acts. These are acts that one is required to do. Just because you go to work and earn a living doesn't mean that you don't come home and assist your wife and doing all the household chores. So it's important that you do that. It's not just the wife's responsibility. In fact, many of these four schools of thought, from all the four, I think two or three of them strongly recommend that it's not the wife's duty to do the cooking. It's not the wife's duty to do the cooking. If the wife does not want to do any cooking, for example, she's not used to this at home, for example, when she was with her parents, then she cannot be imposed on her to do the cooking. It's the husband's responsibility. Either he has to cook himself, get a maid or a servant to cook, or get a takeaway. It's not the wife's responsibility. I know this might be seeming odd, and it's usually through mercy of your wife and compassionate that they do their cooking at home. Because if you look at the Prophet's conduct, he undertook household chores. He didn't make a fuss about food. He consulted his wives on matters outside the home. He was affectionate to children. He never beat his wife or anybody else for that matter. Because the Prophet said, if a man beats his wife, it should be more or less symbolic with something like a toothbrush, i.e. miswak, like we mentioned earlier in the hadith, when he said to the maid, if there was no retribution from Allah, I would have tapped you with this miswak. Playing games, according to Abu Dawud and Ibn Majah, there is no amusement which is praiseworthy except three, namely training a horse, sporting with one's wife, and shooting arrows with a bow. Subhanallah. And we heard the story about how our beloved Prophet enjoyed his time with his wives, and the time when Hazrat Aisha raced our beloved Prophet on one occasion. She won. On the second occasion, he won. Choice given by Allah. O Prophet, say to your wives, if you desire but the life of the world and its charms, then come and I will bestow its good upon you. I will release you with a fair release. But if you desire Allah and His Messenger and the abode of the hereafter, then verily Allah has laid in store for you a mighty reward for such of you as do good. So, subhanAllah, this is a choice that was given to the mothers of the believers. And Hazrat Aisha and the other wives chose Allah and His Messenger. So this was a choice given to the mothers of the believers, to the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, saying that, "O Prophet, say to your wives, if you desire but the life of this world and its charms." So you got a choice: either do you prefer the life of this world and its charms, then come and I will bestow its good upon you. I will release you with a fair release. But if you desire Allah and His Messenger and the abode of the hereafter, then verily Allah has laid in store for you a mighty reward for such of you as do good. Subhanallah. So again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you a choice as well for us. Do we prefer the life of this world and its charms, or do we prefer the life of the hereafter? And if marriages are made in heaven, you try your utmost to make it work to the best of your ability, to compromise, to have that loving relationship, to understand each other, to communicate with each other, give quality time, not sharing secrets outside your bedroom, not fighting and arguing in front of your children. There's always ups and downs. There'll be times that you'll be fighting. Yes, there'll be times that you'll be wanting to stand your way, but always be putting yourself in the other person's shoes and conceptualize and have emotional intelligence and look what the other person wants. If with that kind of a relationship, you can easily win hearts and minds of your spouse. And there's so much emphasis about how a man should be behaving with his woman, with his wife. There are more rights of a wife than there are rights of a husband. According to Bukhari and Muslim, our beloved Prophet warned the men, saying, "Treat women kindly, for women was created from a rib. The part of this is the most bent is the one that is on the top. The part of it that is most bent is the one that's on the top. If you try to straighten it, you will break it. And if you leave it alone, it will remain bent. So treat women kindly." No, nobody's perfect. Everyone has their weaknesses. And here, our beloved Prophet said, despite this fact, despite this crookedness of the bone that's bent, treat them kindly, treat them justly, with mercy. And this is what's expected of a man to his wife. And yet, in many of the Asian culture, we apply our culture so much in terms of how we treat our wife. And this is something that we need to take our teaching from the Quran and the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And you'll soon learn that it's completely different to how we treat our wives. Allah says in the Quran, "O you who have believed, it is not lawful for you to inherit women by compulsion, and do not make difficulties for them in order to take back part of what you gave them, unless they commit a clear immorality, and live with them in kindness. For you, if you dislike them, perhaps you dislike a thing, and Allah makes therein such much good." So, subhanAllah, "O you who have believed, it is not lawful for you to inherit women by compulsion, and do not make difficulties for them. Do not make difficulties for them in order to take back part of what you gave them, unless they commit a clear immorality, and live with them in kindness." So much emphasis about this, and live with them in kindness. For if you dislike them, perhaps you dislike a thing, and Allah makes therein much good. There might be something that you dislike, but Allah has goodness for you for that. Chapter 4, verse 19. A husband may dislike something of his wife and try to distance himself from it, when in fact it is full of goodness and blessing. SubhanAllah. And according to Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, "No believing man should hate a believing woman. If he dislikes one of her characteristics, there will be others that do please him." SubhanAllah. If you dislike 1% of your wife, at least you like the 99%, or 10%, you like the 90%. So this is what the Prophet ﷺ explained, that even if a husband dislikes his wife, she will still have some good characteristics which will please him. So he should not ignore the good side of her character and focus only on the negative aspects. And lastly, if I can just end the session here by quoting this hadith, which I mentioned earlier. The Prophet ﷺ said, "How wonderful is the affair of the believer, for his affairs are all good." And this applies to no one but the believer. If something good happens to him, he is thankful for it, and that is good for him. If something bad happens to him, he bears it with patience, and that is good for him also. Subhanallah. This is according to Muslim. I end it here. Jazakallah khair for listening. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for all the good that you do. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq to put into practice what we heard. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.